You don't necessarily have to hire someone with the skill, but you have to hire someone who's hungry.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go.
I had an employer call me earlier this summer, and she was laughing, and she said, "Jessie, I had to pause my job listing after a week because I had too many great applicants." And I told her that's probably the best problem that a person can have. But that's what happens when your job post actually reaches the right people. When you list a job on Of the West, you're not just getting a line on a job board. You are putting that position in front of an entire community who already stands your world. Ranchers, marketers, livestock specialists, ag communicators, people who get it. Another employer filled her role within 3 days of posting it. 3 days. One of the other things that's really interesting to me is the listing that has been most popular this year is our premium option, which is the most expensive one. So that's kind of surprising, but it's pinned to the top. It is shared to all of our job seekers. It gets emailed in our emails. And clearly that type of listing is paying off for people, which is such a great feeling to have. So if you are hiring, whether it is one person or an entire team, it might be time to give your posting a little extra reach. You can find all of the details at ofthewest.co/employers, because sometimes you guys finding the right person, it just takes showing up in the right place. We are back with a brand new episode of Leaders of the West, and today we get to sit down with somebody who wears more hats than most ranch houses can hold, and she wears them all very, very well. Karoline is the founder of KRose Company, which is one of the leading ag marketing firms to exist. She is also the powerhouse behind Cattleman U, where she equips those in agriculture with practical education and community. She also owns The Rancher's Daughter, a farm-to-table store in Kalispell, and North Fork Fizz, the Flathead Valley's first dirty soda shop. She studied animal science at Montana State University, and the reason that I mention that is she is proof that there are far more career options out there than what your major is, because she has built a career that is fueled by her passion for cattle and marketing and rural America and women in agriculture. And she not only helps ranchers and small businesses thrive, but she is living proof of truly what is possible when you mix your agriculture roots with a very big vision. And we talk a lot about how she herself is what we would call a visionary. In this episode, we dive into entrepreneurship, how she manages the many businesses that she is a part of, and what she's learned about herself and being a great leader along the way, both in leading her own team and then also seeing the leadership of her father. So you guys are in for an incredible episode today. Let's welcome to the show, Karoline. I first want to start this by talking a little bit about your ranch background, but a lot of what you do is not necessarily ranch focused. Yet I know, had you not been raised in this environment or on your family operation, life would look completely different. So what kind of started you down the path of all of your various endeavors? How did ranch life play into all of that?
It's a really interesting background because it probably wasn't until 5 or 6 years ago that I would even consider us ranchers. So my disclaimer is I grew up in a household where agriculture was 100% of our income. And my dad is like the true version of a hustler. He loves when I say that. When he moved to Montana, he said his net worth was $3,500 and he was driving a $2,500 pickup. They moved up from Idaho. And so he first started in the outfitting business. And that's really what led him into knowing all these landowners who eventually had cattle for sale. And so he did outfitting for several years before I was born. The year I was born, he decided to start buying feeder calves. And he said to my mom, "I'm going to do this so I'm home more often." Such a joke.
Joke's on
Instead of
him.
one season, we are now all the time. And so growing up, my mom had an ag ed degree from Cal Poly, and my dad also graduated from Cal Poly. But my dad was buying cattle. He always had like the neighbor's place leased. We always had some cows around. Like he was just really, trying to make a name for himself in the industry. And so agriculture was our base, but we weren't really ranchers. And so we lived on 5 acres. And like I said, he always had a cow or two in the backyard. Like he really was trying to make it work, and buying feeder calves was his main occupation. And he actually worked kind of the opposite of a traditional order buyer. He was hired by a set of ranchers to represent their cattle to the best of his ability. So kind of the opposite. Instead of being hired by the feeders, he was hired by the ranchers. And so that is what my background was. And when I was never in FFA, we didn't have any FFA. And so I was in 4-H. And when I graduated, I thought, well, I'll go into ag ed. And I went to K-State. I did 1 semester at K-State, and my dad called me on the phone and said, I have an opportunity to buy this ranch. Do you want to come home? Do you want to be involved in it? My brother had already graduated from college and was back home. And so I said, sure. So I moved back to MSU. But what I really learned, a few things, is like how to hustle, how to be scrappy, and that being in agriculture doesn't necessarily always have to look like, a set of mother cows and all of that. Like you can be involved in the industry in creative ways. And my dad showed us that from the very beginning.
Oh, so much good stuff there that we could, like that in itself could be the episode. But all of that to say, I can imagine that is really what made you decide to launch KRose Company. But since then, you now have The Rancher's Daughter, you have North Fork Fizz, you have Cattleman U. You are a serial entrepreneur. Was that all planned, or did you build out something that you needed that didn't exist, which led you to the next, like, well, now we've solved this problem, but this thing still doesn't exist? And lay all of that out for us.
Well, to be honest, I'm a very true visionary. And so that is one of my biggest strengths. But I also do everything 70%. So don't let me fool you. Someone else is helping me do the 30% of everything else. And so I started KRose, which was when I graduated college. It was called KRose Cattle Company. And that last semester of my super senior year, I kept getting job offer after job offer, and I would cry. And my dad kept calling and saying, why are you crying? And I said, I can't work for someone. And I think he had this like moment of panic. And he was like, you have to work. Like, just because you don't want to work for someone, like you got to work. And I said, oh, I'll work. I just don't want to work for someone. And I wish I would have known how hard it would have been to be an entrepreneur, because I probably would have taken a full-time job and gotten the, boat closer to the dock. I just was going through numbers actually, because we're 10 years old. My very first year, the entire company made $12,000. So not my part, the entire company brought in $12,000. And so KRose was just like a really natural fit where I was able to do my strengths. And then, Cattleman U was founded in 2020 during COVID. It was a COVID response to farm and ranch conferences. They weren't really going as virtual as the rest of the conferences were. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, we're going to have this huge gap where farmers and ranchers are not getting this education because they're home. And because of everything going on with COVID, like even the opportunities are going to be slim. So that's really where I saw the need for Cattleman U. And I still have that. I have an animal science degree. So at K-State, I was ag ed, but I came back and got an animal science. So I still have that teaching heart, and I really love to teach. Now, Cattleman U has massively evolved. And so it looks very different today than it did in 2020. But The Rancher's Daughter was maybe an ego decision. I'm not sure I'm supposed to admit that, but I really wanted to sell our beef at the Flathead County Farmers Market in Kalispell, Montana. And so I applied. At the time, there was no beef being sold here. And so I was like so excited. I said, I can offer beef. Like I'm doing Walmart, beef deals. Like I can offer it to the public. We're already raising great beef. And they turned me down. And they said, you can't sell beef here because your beef isn't processed in Flathead County. And that's one of our rules. And I said, whoa. There's not a USDA processor in Flathead County. Like you can't make me switch to a state processor only to sell I was like, no way, I'm not going to do that. And so I just said, well, I'm going to have a place to sell my beef. If they won't let me sell in the farmer's market, I'm just going to open up a year-round farmer's market in the terms of a retail store and name it the Rancher's Daughter.
And when did you launch that?
In fall of 2022. So KRose was 2015, Cattleman U was 2020, the Rancher's Daughter was 2022. Bohannan Cattle Company, which is my husband and I's yearling operation and cow-calf operation, we made official in 24, and then North Fork Fizz in 25.
Okay, let's talk about North Fork Fizz right now, because I'm going to say of all of these, KRose Company, Cattleman U, the Rancher's Daughter, Bohannan Cattle Company, they all make sense. They fit together. North Fork Fizz is definitely the outlier, but I love it. So tell people what it is.
So North Fork Fizz is a dirty soda shop inside the Rancher's Daughter. So branded separately. Our soft opening was the last week in September, and there is not a dirty soda shop in Kalispell. And so that was immediately an opportunity. 2, we had a coffee shop in that space who was there from January until August. And she got pregnant with her second baby, decided she can't do it over the winter with 2 young kids. And so all the infrastructure was already in there, like the sinks, everything like that. Like she had paid for that. And so when she turned in and asked us to terminate her lease, there's a lot of great coffee in Kalispell. I mean, if you guys have been to Montana, we have huts, coffee huts everywhere. And so I was like, I don't want to open just another mediocre coffee shop. And the hours have to be so different than the retail store. It's a whole different staff scenario, right? Like we open the retail store in the winter at 10 a.m. Like you can't do that on a coffee shop. And so
no, people want their coffee at 6:30 in the morning.
Absolutely. And we don't have a drive-through. And so we're like, okay, we have to put something in this space that is cute and fun. And dirty sodas have really been the talk lately. And so we decided to open North Fork Fizz the beginning of September. And we have built an entire business. And as of today, we are open.
Well, that is exciting. Let me go back real quick to ranching, though, because I do feel like that is definitely, of all of the entities and all the things you've got going on, all the irons in the fire, that is definitely the root of what it is that you do. You know, ranching is something that carries a lot of tradition, but you are somebody who you've really leaned into building new businesses within that. How do you decide what is worth evolving and what is really worth keeping the same? Because again, with you and your husband and your cattle company and you're running yearlings and feeder cattle, like that is probably a little bit more of the same, if you will, compared to something like Cattleman U, very new compared to what existed previous.
I owe a lot of that mindset to my dad. Growing up, he would always say, we can't compare ourselves to the neighbor because I hope we're doing something completely different than them. And he really put that in as a positive. We want them to talk about us. We want down at the local bar for people to say, what do you think roses are doing? Why are all those trucks going in? Why are they buying all that feed? He told us that that was something we should be proud of and that we should strive to do is something no one else is doing. And so kind of that creativity came from our roots and just knowing that everything's one big experiment. And so we're always, even in our family operation, which just to give people a little overview so people know, we have a backgrounding lot and we lease several ranches and run yearlings. And then between my dad and I, we buy about 30,000 feeder calves a year. And so we have all kind of components of that. And then we obviously have a cow-calf operation as well. And so we have every piece of the industry right there. And so my dad has always stressed to us, it is good to be creative. It is good to experiment. It is good to fail. As long as we're making decisions that we think are best in the moment with some thought and process, it's okay. And so anytime I bring a crazy idea like ranch camp or Cattleman U or any unique piece, they're really good. My dad and brother, so my brother manages the place, and they're both really good at let's try it. Have you run the numbers? Do you have a business plan? Do you have thoughts laid out? And we just have this family attitude of we want to be different. We want to be unique. We want to do what no one else is doing. And because of that, we're going to fail sometimes, but also we are going to have some really cool experiences. And I think the one piece that we stick with tradition is we really want to do things with integrity and honesty. And so my dad talks a lot about that. You can talk yourself out of like any bad cattle deal if you've told 100% the truth. Like you can get, if you go to the sale barn and buy a load of calves for someone and they get home and they don't like them and you bought calves you would feed, my dad's like, we just say, great, we'll own them. Like we just have this mentality of like crossing our T's and dotting our I's in that aspect, which allows us to experiment and be creative in the other aspects.
So what you're saying, though, is your dad and your brother, they don't call you crazy Karoline with her crazy ideas.
Oh, they do. But then they're like, actually, well, that's a really great idea. But all the time my dad will say, I heard him we were at Lewiston, Idaho. We were having dinner with the sale barn owner and all day he's just ragging on me, my dad. And he was like, yeah, I have to make enough money buying cattle to be welfare for my daughter. Like he's just having fun with me all day long. And then at the very end of the conversation, he's like, I do have to tell you about the coolest things. He's like, my daughter brings the craziest ideas to the table and they have changed our life. And so like, yeah, they absolutely, I'm sure, especially when I walk out of the room, they like roll their eyes at me. But at the end, like we're a family unit. We want our grandkids to ranch together. Like that's something my brother and I talk about. And we have very different strengths. And one of mine's coming up with the ideas.
Yeah, you are the visionary. So let's talk a little bit about that because every good visionary has to have an integrator. You can't just have all the crazy ideas. We actually have to like put the ideas into practice. And that's not to say that you're not willing to do the work or that you're not going to hustle to make it happen. But the strengths of somebody who is a visionary, who comes up with the ideas, who can see the vision, who can like mentally put all those pieces together, they have a different skill set than that of the integrator, which actually takes the clay and molds it into what it needs to be. So how does that work?
So actually each company has its own integrator. The Rancher's Daughter, Grayson fills the role of the integrator, which is my business partner on the Rancher's Daughter in North Fork Fizz. And when we went into the partnership, she knew very much I'm a visionary. She's a doer. She takes my ideas and runs. She's very good at saying, we can't do that now. We have to table that, which is all so powerful for a visionary because I'd make us all broke if I just ran with every idea I had. And then at KRose and Cattleman U, we also have an integrator, Jordan, who really takes my ideas, helps the rest of the team. So KRose has a staff of 9 and helps, like, this is what, Karoline's vision is, how she wants this to happen. Like, let's help her make this happen. And then kind of at the ranch, what's so funny is my brother probably acts as the integrator role for the backgrounding lot and the family deal. And he is definitely the doer. And so he's the one that makes sure the fat cattle, get to the processor and things like that. But we really rely heavily on the KRose team to also help when I have visions at the ranch, such as ranch camp and things like that. And so we have a lot of cross-contamination. A lot of my team says like, wow, we love texting John Rose. You'll send him 50 texts and he'll never respond. And then he calls you and he's read every single one and he has a thought for them, but he just never texts you back. And so just allowing like our family organization to kind of, settle in and figure out how that's going to work. I know my dad says, I'm not sure if this is politically correct, but he said it's no longer a dictatorship. It's a democracy. And he said that's the thing he hates the most is he can't just make all the decisions anymore. He has to let us vote. And so he will say things such as like, well, we have to vote on that. Like everyone needs to come to the table. You need to get approval from these people in order to move forward with that decision. And so we just we're working on the organization within each division, but it is a little crazy. And I have, especially when I drive, I get so many ideas. I just send these voice memos to my team. I'm sure they hate it, but I'm like, here's what we're going to do next.
So of all of the ideas, let's kind of put this into perspective. Of all of the ideas that you have in a given month, how many of them, we'll do a percentage, come to fruition, like that you actually move forward on?
25 to 30%.
Okay, which is perfect because I wanted to ask that to kind of paint the next question of, you obviously wear a ton of hats. We have established this thus far in the show. How do you decide where to focus your energy? Because even though you are not the integrator, you're still doing, let's not get that wrong, but your role is different as far as your involvement in each of those different businesses and operations. You also, Karoline, still only have 24 hours in the day like everybody else. You can't be a micromanager. You have to let people go on with their talents. So how do you focus that energy?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I get that a lot. One, I want to be very truthful. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. And so I am ridiculously high energy.
You're a golden retriever.
Yeah, I think that it's a little unfair because I can run on 4 hours of sleep for months and not feel it. And so I get some of that feedback where people will just say like, wow, you get so much done. I'm like, yeah, I just naturally have a lot of energy. And I know that that's not the case for everyone. So what I want to tell you here is like, don't compare yourself to me. Try to use some of the things I'm going to say to help you figure out your priorities instead of, saying I'm not getting enough done. So one of the big things is we have very defined roles. And so in KRose, for example, my roles are very small. So I buy all the feeder calves. So I travel to sales. And because of that, I don't get to be involved in a lot of the meetings, especially in the fall. I'm very hands off. Like they will produce and do something. They have a giveaway today I had no idea about. I was like, great, that looks good. But I'm very hands off because I'm on the road buying feeder calves. That lights me up. And that is a piece that I do not want to give up. And I love doing that. So then we kind of tie things that work well with that, especially during the season. So I make all the sales calls, which I've heard you talk about is really fun. So while I'm driving up and down the road, I can call people and talk. So I make all of the sales calls. I also do all of our customers' marketing strategy because I don't have to be in a meeting to do that. I can get on and do a voice recording and say, this seed stock customer, this is their goals, and here's how we're going to do it. Now you implement. And so I can do that with audio, and I don't have to be there. And then obviously I host the Cattleman U podcast. So it's like I pick the things that only I can do and things that go well together, and I try to combine them into my role into that season. One of the things I do at the Rancher's Daughter is I work the front counter. And so when I work the front counter, it is just like I am having a KRose office day with a few distractions. Mm-hmm. Because, our average ticket item is or average transaction is $125. And so you're not having thousands of people come in every day. But so I get dedicated time to sit and work KRose, but still be in tune to what's happening in my retail store and in North Fork Fizz. And so I get to do some things like that. So that really helps. And then Cattleman U, She's a Hand Ranch Camp. I do the podcast and I host the monthly webinars. Besides that, that's pretty much what I'm in charge of. And so the thing that you have to do is you have to have a really great team around you. And for those of you who don't have employees, that could be your spouse or your siblings, someone that can really help you accomplish the things that you need to get done. You have to be very productive. When I look back at the first few years of my business, and I'm sure you even feel this way in, of the West, we thought we were busy. If I knew the tasks that I know now, I'm like, wow, I was wasting so much time. What was I doing there? And so knowing exactly the work that matters, and then you can't be a perfectionist. So that's the really big thing is we're going to make some mistakes. As long as we're trying, as long as there's effort, as long as it wasn't intentional, I forget and forgive. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You forgot to change an email subject line, world's going to go on. And so you can't really get caught up in that. And also I'm a huge metric tracker. And so I need to see the numbers, both the financial numbers, the growth numbers, and we have goals. And when I get to track those, it allows me to have a proper pulse on everything that's going on to make sure that, there's nothing on fire. I tell my team all the time, don't let the house burn down without being a smoke alarm. And I think when you have so many things going on, you have to know what sounds the smoke alarm and what doesn't. And you have to be able to address things like that. And also, I occasionally, when I have a slower season, not in the fall because I'm on the road most days, but I will do a bulk day. So I'll say today is all things Bohannan Cattle Company. I'm not checking KRose email. I'm just focused on that. And I can do that once every couple months and make so much progress. But you just have to be really intentional with your time. And, I don't listen to a ton of music. I don't watch a ton of TV. I don't do some of those things so I can be more effective with the time I've been given.
Yes. I think that all of those are so huge. Let's talk a little bit about, because you did bring this up, about hiring a team. Maybe you haven't hired anybody, thinking about the listener here. But knowing that for many entrepreneurs, their business is never going to grow until they do add to their team. What are some things that have been really impactful for you when it's came to hiring your own team, or things that maybe you wish that somebody would have told you back when you were making your early hires or just hiring in general?
Yeah. So I've had a team for 10 years. So I hired within 6 months of starting KRose Company. And a few things when I go to hire, when I go to add someone to the team, one is gut feeling. For example, we added someone to our team recently. I saw her LinkedIn post and she was in the tech world. And I sent her a LinkedIn message and I said, I just want to have coffee with you. Like, could we sit down? So we sat down and I learned that one of her previous jobs was she was in Girl Scouts and she helped them through COVID. And I said, well, I have this educational platform called Cattleman U. Would you look into that and see if you're interested in running Cattleman U? And she's been a phenomenal hire. And so like sometimes it's just a gut feeling, like this is going to work. The other thing too is you don't necessarily have to hire someone with the skill, but you have to hire someone who's hungry. Someone who wants to get in there, wants to do a good job, and wants to learn. I always say, use YouTube. I don't know. I have an animal science degree. Like some of this stuff, man, technology-wise, I'm learning alongside you. Like I don't have all the information. And the other thing too is in order to retain employees, and I have some employees who have started with me before I met my husband, so over 7 years ago. And most of my team was added in 2020, 2021. And you just have to ebb and flow with their life. And so it can be really frustrating as someone who's like a high performer, gets stuff done, like moves and grooves, is always doing one step. But it's really important that you value what's valuable to them. And so adjusting schedules, if they have kids and whatever flexibility you can do is so, so important to make them feel appreciated. And I tell my team all the time, I'm the dumbest one in every meeting we have. Like they are so smart, so incredible. Like their voices are heard. They all have goals. And just knowing that their role really matters and we're doing things that do make a big impact, I think helps them feel like they are in a situation that is beneficial and it's worth putting in the hours. The other thing too is I hear their needs. And so I'm always like, you want to try photography? I'll get you a camera. You want to do this? I mean, that's part of the reason why we started the soda shop is because Jordan approached me and said, I would love to own a soda shop. And I said, look, we have an opportunity. Would you like to come do the soda shop? And so when you find their passions inside what you're already doing, that is so, so helpful. When you write payroll tax checks, even 10 years in, you're going to wonder why you have employees. But it is the best part of my job. And I just love like cultivating the relationships and watching them grow and watching them produce things that they're really proud of.
Oh, so much good there. On that note, what is a leadership lesson that you have learned that's made you stronger?
Definitely, you can't micromanage.
Do tell.
I used to like really take almost that like control away from them where I was like checking things too early and they wouldn't be done. The other thing that I've learned, and I think this is just a great lesson, is like you have to ask why. So if you see a design piece that the designer did that you don't love, we have a phenomenal designer, but you don't love, like ask why they did it that way. Like you don't have to tell them you don't like it right off the bat. Like get their story. Maybe there's something you don't know in what made their decisions. And then the other thing too, this is an answer to a lot of the questions that my team asks, but like the answers I already know if you don't ask. And so I tell them that all the time. You know, we just hired someone on our team, a photographer, videographer. And I said, hey, I don't know that I have a full-time role for this yet. Would you be interested in part-time? She said, that's my dream. And I'm like, I could have tried to hire and fit something in full-time and, you know, cost that full-time wage. But when I asked about part-time, she was like, that's my dream. And so you just have to really know that when you're working as a leader, one, you're never going to be perfect. I wish we were. But it's like a human being on the other end. And so communication can do a lot of things. And also just like being interested in the procedure versus just interested in the final product.
Oh, yes. Such good stuff there. Okay, we've got to go to the rapid fire round. What do you hope people remember most about you?
Of course, I hope that they, you know, remember my love for Jesus and like how I brought that to the table, especially the women that we get to mentor at ranch camp, because that's a huge topic that comes up at ranch camp just naturally. But I also hope that they saw that I just was a champion for women in agriculture and really encouraging and allowing women to know that they held such a vital role. And I really think women are the reason there's going to be a next generation of farmers and ranchers.
Amen to that. What is a non-negotiable in your life?
Oh, coffee.
Says the girl who now doesn't have a coffee shop, but has a soda shop.
Yeah, I should have a coffee shop because I still buy a $6 coffee every day on the way to the soda shop.
If you were a professional athlete, what would your walk-up song be?
This is so hard. I'm terrible at music. But the song that I listen to the most it's a Christian song. I don't even know the name. And it just talks about even if God could move that mountain and he decides not to, there's a reason and it will be okay. And so anytime I'm running into struggles or I don't know what's going to happen, I just remember that every outcome of every scenario has a reason. So if you think about what you're doing, whether they say yes or they say no, or that person books the job or they don't or whatever, it's all part of the stair step of what's happening next.
That is super, super powerful. Okay, I'm going to find the name of that song.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put it on our playlist because we've got a little walk-up song playlist from everybody's favorites.
It's definitely more low-key than some of the other ones you've had.
I like that. What is the smartest thing someone's ever told you?
Definitely the answer is no if you don't ask. I tell myself that before every cold call.
Let's talk about favorite things. Do you have a favorite book or podcast, probably not a TV show, a life hack, something that has just changed your life that you think more people need to know about?
Oh, well, thousands. So I don't know how long we have. But the big thing is I use my phone really strategically. So I not only have time limits on apps, but I have reminders, or when I type in certain words, it auto-fills. I've used my phone more as a tool. And on the front screen of my phone, I have all of my quarter goals. And then the next screen is all of my yearly goals. Then the next screen is my prayer list. And so I just really try to make sure that my phone is more of a tool because I know it can be such a distraction. It is a distraction, but I try to make sure that even before I open the Instagram app, I get to see what I'm aiming for that quarter and see if I can take some steps and some actions instead of just mindlessly scrolling.
Oh, that is genius. That is definitely the first time I've ever heard of this, but I absolutely love this. What made you come up with that idea?
I can't remember where I heard of it, but it's called the Widget app. And so you can put big goals on there. And so then literally that's my home screen. So I can see all my quarter goals. I have fun little emojis. And then every Sunday I update them. And so I can see where I'm at progress-wise on all of those. It's just this little reminder when you open your phone that I'm shooting for something much bigger than the 10 minutes of satisfaction I'm going to get watching Instagram stories.
Look at you, Karoline. You are above and beyond in all things. And this really has been such an enlightening conversation. Okay, a few things though. Where can people find you online? Where can they connect with all of the various irons you've got going on in that hot fire of yours? Give us the details.
So I always give a disclaimer. I'm a marketing company. So of course you can find us on every social platform, but we do our internal company's marketing last. So just FYI, when you're looking and wondering why we haven't posted in a week. So Cattleman U both has, of course, a website, the podcast, Facebook and Instagram. KRose Company has website, Facebook and Instagram. Fork Fizz has Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. That has been really fun. So people have been coming in already based on our TikToks. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and then I have a TikTok as well. I both have a personal TikTok and one where I talk about cattle. And so I kind of separate the things that I don't think other people, the cattle world, would like to hear about as frequently. I had to block my dad on that one too, because I was doing a grocery shopping haul and he called and he said, what a dumb thing to record. So I blocked him on that one. But I'm pretty easy to find on social media. And as a unit, the team is pretty active. And also, I think I forgot the Rancher's Daughter. They have Facebook, website, Instagram as well.
And just in case you guys didn't catch it while you're listening to this, it is Karoline with a K. So Karoline. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for sitting down with us today. I know that you guys were able to pull so many great nuggets out of this show. Please do us a favor, share those online. We want to hear them and see them. And I know that Karoline and her team do as well. You guys know we're going to be back here next week with a brand new episode of Leaders of the West. We'll see you then.
If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.